I've been using these wireless phone chargers. Ignore the wire for a second. These wireless phone chargers, which normally have an arm with a suction pad that sticks on the windscreen. There's two problems though. One is that, where's the arm? It's broken off. There's a kind of ball and socket thing up there that broke off, and so I can't use it on the suction pad anymore. And the other problem is that's micro USB connection in there. Then clearly there's just a little bit too much leverage with the connector onto the circuit board that's inside, which I will show to you. So I'm just going to take this off. Because it's clear that it's a weak spot in the design, because the length of the USB plug in there is just putting a bit too much strain on the circuit board. So what I'm doing instead, what I've done instead is to bypass the circuit board, or the plug rather. So the plug normally goes in there, and what I've done, as you can see, I've wired a wire directly onto the circuit board. I had to scrape a little bit of this green varnish off in order to do that. So that's the way up that the plug is, with the flat side upwards, and that means that the USB positive side is on the left as you look at it. And as you've seen, that means that I cut a little notch in the side of the case part to allow the wire to poke out, which you can do on either side as you wish. And so that's allowing me to ignore the wire that gets broken all the time, or the plug, the socket in fact, that gets broken all the time in there due to the leverage. And it means that I can, as you've seen, put a wire directly onto the circuit board, and then I can put a USB plug direct onto the end of the wire. So rather than using a typical USB lead, actually let me go and fetch one. So this is a typical short USB lead, and it's got the micro USB thing on one end and normal USB full size on the other end. And this is what happens if you plug it in there. It's the leverage of this bit sticking out that basically breaks the circuit board. So instead of using that, as you saw, I've got this wire going in directly, and I can put a USB plug directly on the end of this, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to switch my soldering iron on, and you can watch the process. The first thing I'm going to do is tin the end of the wires. So what is tinning? Basically, having stripped the ends, is just putting a little bit of solder on the end of the wire. That makes it much easier to kind of get the initial stick stage onto the plug. There it is. Right, that's that done. And I'm now going to snip the end off, because you often get a knob or a raggedy bit on the end of the wire when you do that. So I'm just removing it. Okay, and here is my USB plug, which is literally just the plug. So when I say a USB plug, I mean the physical plug, not a charger. Now this device still needs to be fed with USB, which is at 5 volts by the way, But you don't need to necessarily have one of those things that plugs into the cigarette lighter socket. You can get standalone devices which you can wire into your dashboard. So this is the ones that I'm using are good power output, and that's a major thing as well. But one of the advantages is that the socket on the dashboard can be nice and slim and doesn't occupy 12 volts. So this plug here is simply the USB plug itself. So if you like, it replaces this. Now in principle I could have taken this apart and wired it direct into there, but this is a moulded connector. And on top of that, I tend to find that the wires inside these things sometimes, let's say, they're not as thick, not as good conductors as they might be, and the performance can be compromised by that. And this is a charger situation, so I want to make sure it's got a very good power supply. Okay, so this is the USB plug. As you can see, there's four connections. Little 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we only need the outer two. The outer two are power and the middle two are data. We don't need the data, so we're just going with power. And as with the wires, I'm going to tin the metal like this. There we go. That's one done. Two done. And the wires themselves, now it is, looking at the plug this way round, this was the plastic white thing upwards. It's the contact on that side which is positive, which on the way I wired it up, that's the one with the black white trace on the individual's segment. So I'm now going to need something to hold it still, so I'm just going to rest this wire cutters on it. So here we go. Ouch. I had that done and then unfortunately I actually touched my finger, which wasn't such a good idea. That's one done. In fact, there's a bit of a knob on this. That's better. Right, use that to hold it still. And that's the benefit of tinning the wire and the contact first, because basically you just need to heat the thing up with the tip of the soldering iron and it's job done. So that's my two connections, and I just now need to put the case on. Right, now I'm going to put the plastic shell on. This did take me a little while to work out how to do it, but eventually I realised there's a kind of little pair of little, there's a kind of slot, one each side, which lines up with the tag on the metal part just here. So I'm going to put, it sticks out more than you might expect. Anyway, squeeze it together. There we go, and the top half, and because this wire is thicker, I guess, than was expected when the people designed this, I'm using some strong finger pressure to fix it together. But there we go. So we now have a completely wired up wireless phone charger without any need to use this thing. It's just wired. It makes you wonder actually why they don't make them like that in the first place. Anyway, I'll put the mount on the back, and in fact this part I'm going to bolt into the dashboard, and that will avoid having to use a suction pad, and makes the whole thing rather more elegant. It's quite neat, isn't it? And in fact, here we have one. I've done two of these things. As you can see, well, that's what the blue light means. It's charging, and this one has got the stalk on it, which was originally expected. So that can go on one of my cars that uses a suction pad, and this one will go bolted into the dashboard. I think that's quite neat. Just for completeness, let me demonstrate plugging it in. So watch the little light down here as I plug it in. It goes blue, then green, then turquoise. And if I plug my phone in, there it is. Grips nicely, and yeah, nice solid mounting. And here we have the phone charger in situ, which is wired in via traditional USB, a couple of sockets here coming in the side, but without any need for a USB plug, which in this one actually sticks out below, so this is a lot neater.